This hour is brought to you by Jeremy Temple Law Office of Bloomington. Personal injury, criminal, business, whatever you need, Jeremy Temple Law Office will get you taken care of.
Well, we're coming to your city. Gonna play our guitars and sing you a country song. We'll all be flying higher than a jetliner. And if you want a little bang in your yin-yang, come along.
Well, come on and welcome aboard Indiana Sports Beat with Coyle Leary here on this Tuesday, February 18th. Coming to you, of course, from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios. Jim Coyle, got Jake at the wheel, keeping us on the track. And, of course, our running mate Todd Leary's here. Hit us up on the text line, 812-269-6367. Share the broadcast out to your friends and neighbors. Get it to them. On the program today, Dana Hunsinger-Benbow from the Indy Star is going to join us. Looking forward to talking to her. She did that great interview with Todd Leary that you saw in the Indy Star on Bob Knight's return. Chronic Hoosier also with us as well. Lots to get to. Indiana basketball, of course. John Beilein in the news, the Daytona 500. Plenty to get to, Todd Leary. Plenty to talk about today, man. How's it going?
How come John Beilein was mentioned right after Indiana basketball in the news? That was kind of
because there's not a lot going on.
Kind of a mental slip on your part.
Nah, not at all. That's not
strategery. It was strategery the way you put that in there.
Strategery. I love that word, strategery. That is one of my favorite words.
Underused. It's an underused.
It is a very underutilized word, strategery. No, John Beilein, yeah, he's definitely been talked about a lot, but it just cracks me up. I mean, I look at just because you almost have to, but I see that social media. Archie Miller is not going anywhere. Like him, dislike him. Whether you think he should be replaced, don't think he should be replaced, doesn't matter. He's not going anywhere, folks. They have to pay him. His contract is guaranteed through a certain point, and they have not reached that yet. So that means you'd have to pay him 100% of his remaining salary. So unless you got a heavy, deep pocket with it and you're ready to write a check for about 12, 14 million, just roll on.
And I'm not saying – whether I would agree with it or not, but there's only one person in the world, in my opinion right now, there's only one person in the world that Indiana would do that for. And that's Brad Stevens.
I agree with
Brad Stevens.
I agree with you because I don't know that there's no one else that you could take that kind of a risk on.
Yeah.
And that's what it would be, as a risk. But, and again, I'm not suggesting this. I know that this has just been a heavy.
Yeah. It's weird how it's been on all the, we watch all the fan talk and boards and all that stuff. And it's pretty crazy how, every time things are not going well, everybody starts discussing other coaches and that stuff. And that's the one thing I will disagree with people on till the cows come home, because it just doesn't make any sense to me why you jump ship like that. I mean, things are not, it's only been 3 years. That is a short window to judge things on.
Exactly. And if you go back and John Beilein is a classic example, if you look at his 3-year record, Archie is, I wrote this down yesterday what Archie is. He's got a winning record, at least. He's over 500 a little bit. He's something like 53 and 46 there, but 57 and 42, I think. It's kind of close to 500, but he's over 500. John Beilein in his first 3 years, 46 and 53. So Mike Krzyzewski, the same thing. Now, we're talking about a different time, but it's not that long ago, number one. Number two, like Todd's talking about, you got to you're mixing in two completely different styles of play with coaching-wise between Tom Crean and Archie Miller. And I'll be honest, I'm not – you're talking about a completely opposite offense, which I really don't – I've had trouble figuring out.
The difficulty right now is, you and I talked about this to start the year out, and I think last year's team struggled with it all year long. And it's something that we talked about early, and then we've just kind of gotten away from it because I think later in the year you figure you shouldn't have to say this kind of thing anymore. But But Indiana needed to establish an identity in what they were going to be. And we thought that was going to be, a running team that got to the free throw line a lot. And early in the season, they did that. And now, like if I just walked down or asked anybody that watches Indiana basketball, what's their identity? How would you describe them? I don't think that they would have. I don't think they would know. I don't think they could say it. And that's why fans are getting frustrated. I mean, even Archie Miller's teams at Dayton, I think, you felt like they always relied on defense. You felt like that anyway. And I don't know if that's because they didn't score very many points on offense, so you knew they had to, or what it was. But I mean, that Michigan game was disheartening from the standpoint of defensively. That was Tom Crean style defense right there. I mean, that was terrible. Like it was, they couldn't stop they couldn't stop the outside. They couldn't stop the drive. They couldn't stop the inside passes. It was bad defense. And, that's where I don't know what their identity is. I watch every game. I rewatch it numerous times, and I can tell you, I don't know how I'd describe this team.
Jennifer says, I watched the Archie Miller show last night. People want him gone, and they are brutal in the comments. So much negativity. I want them to win, but people are nuts. Yeah, there's no doubt to that, Jennifer. People are nuts. People are nuts.
The part of that I'm sure Archie Miller understands and takes into account, and I hope like the average person takes this into account, is the people who are going to write something or say something are the ones who are going to be negative. The people who have something positive to say, especially after a loss like that, are probably going to keep quiet. And, so you're going to hear from more of the negative side of things. And that's just kind of people's human nature, is people feel like they need to criticize. But I mean, if you don't have, I say this all the time, if you don't have a solution, you don't be so quick to judge it or criticize it. And these people who are criticizing don't have any authority to make any decisions or any fixes. So
yeah, and we can sit here, we can talk about this all day, we can talk about it all week, we can talk about it all month, but like I said to start the show, Archie's not going anywhere. Anybody, he's not leaving unless he decides on his own to leave, which that ain't going to happen. He's making $3.5 million. He ain't leaving, and they're not going to get rid of him right now. But I understand though where some of the fans are coming from. I mean, because there's so much talk that centers around effort with this team. That's what I think bothers people as much as anything. But also, I don't know that, because I don't see progress with these teams. Each of these years, not only have I not seen progress, but I've seen regression with each team as the season goes on, and I haven't seen that change. I have not seen them come out of that. I've not seen them hit a bounce like we've seen Ohio State and Michigan do. I've not seen that in these teams under him, so I understand the frustration. I'm not suggesting any change needs to be made, should be made. I'm just saying I do understand the frustration, and I know where it's coming from.
In your opinion, let's just throw this out there just for fun. So in your opinion, if his contract expired this year, if it was a 3-year original deal and his contract expired this year, would you renew his contract?
Me personally?
Yeah.
No. If it was that situation, absolutely not, because then now you're putting your situation in to where they recontracted with Tom Crean and gave him a big boost, and then it cost them an extra 2 years. They had to wait to get rid of him because it put him in such a financial bind, much like they have done here by guaranteeing this salary through 5 or 7 years, whatever it was. They're already they've already handcuffed themselves. So no, there's no way I would renew, because now then you're putting yourself into 5 more years of that.
Yeah, but what if it was 3 more years? I mean, that's what I'm saying is
I don't think Indiana fans are going to take 3 more years of this.
Yeah. I don't know. I just so then that, from what I said prior to that, and then this. So who would your solution be then?
Now, see, then that's the great question, because people who say anything close to what I'm saying, that is the very next question, and I don't think any of them have an answer, including me. I mean, if you want to. In a perfect world, you've already said Brad Stevens. That's not likely.
No, that is very unlikely. It's not an option. So
it's not even. Yeah, not only is it unlikely, it's not even an option, like you said. I don't know. Chris Beard maybe, but I don't know what the solution is I know that there appears to be a problem. Now, I'm not certain if that is the case, but there appears to be an issue because, like I said, my issue is seeing the same thing now 3 years in a row, seeing these teams regress 3 years in a row at the end of the season, see them get worse, see them not producing. That's what's scary to me. Now, I understand that he still does not have a full complement roster of his players, quote unquote. I don't know that should matter when it comes time to getting kids to play for you. But again, I understand where the frustration is coming from, but there's no changes coming, and
yeah. I mean, I want to see. Here's what I'll be interested to see next year, and I know you've heard me a lot talk about they need somebody that can shoot the basketball, and I know people shoot that idea down a lot and say it's a lot deeper than they just need somebody that can shoot, and to some degree that's true, but also to another degree that's not true, because you look at the game against Iowa and they made shots and everybody thought everything was roses and candy again, but I want him to recruit somebody, and it may be Anthony Leal and it may be Trey Galloway, I'm not sure. But I want him to recruit somebody that can come in here and is a vocal leader. Okay, I'm so tired of having the Romeo Langfords of the world that are quiet. Even if they're leaders, they're quiet leaders and stuff like that. Okay, well, we've got a whole team full of those apparently. And this right now, the leadership falls on. I've given this a lot of thought and watched a lot of what's going on. The leadership right now falls on Rob Finney and Armand Franklin. Because those are the two guards that Archie Miller recruited and he brought in, and that's where so those are his players, and those are the people that he brought in to lead this team, and you can't bring any more quiet leaders. If Rob Finney's a quiet guy and it's just not in his nature, then quit recruiting those guys or recruit some of those and have one guy that's a loudmouth leader that's going to tell everybody where to go and what to do. And when Archie Miller needs to get something across to the team, he goes to that guy, he tells him what needs to happen, and that guy goes and takes care of it with the team. And that's the disconnect I see right now with this team. I don't know who Archie Miller's, Michael Lewis or Tom Coverdale or I don't know who that guy is for him.
I think that I agree with you, and I think that's a big part of the problem, but I think it's a big part of the problem because he's not there. Because he has needed a leader. He has needed a backup point guard. He's needed a shooter for this entire time. Has not gotten either of them. Has not gotten them. You when you're around your kids,
But he's only had 2 recruiting classes, so that's why I'm saying we have to give him a little bit of time with that.
There's no doubt. Again, I'm not saying that he's had enough time, but my concern is what I am seeing. I'm not seeing progress. I'm not seeing player development. I'm seeing regression 3 straight years. I've seen his teams get worse 3 straight years and struggle right to the bitter end and not come back. I've seen them multiple times where they have just needed an all-out effort and just not giving it. And I don't understand that. I don't care who you are. I don't care who I'm playing for. Man, I'm playing to win. I'm playing for me. At some point, you got to play for you. Play for your own pride and to win and to succeed, whether that's guarding the guy you got to guard. And if that's your deal, you're not meant to supply offensively, but your deal is to be a defender, then be the best damn defender you can be. Play for you. Have some pride. I'm not seeing that, and I can't imagine all those guys are without pride. So it just brings up a lot of questions is all I think.
Yeah, I mean, I hear what you're saying, but when you're talking about playing with pride, I mean, you're blaming the players, and I am too. Like
absolutely.
So those guys are the ones who have to step up and do something differently. But
But I'm wondering, is there something that has really pushed them to that point? Why? How can that many kids not play like that? Is what it leads to.
Yeah, I mean, there's been too many games they had to win. That Purdue game, you had to win. Last year, first game in the Big Ten tournament, you had to win. I mean, those are games that get you into the NCAA tournament. And not winning those games, that's when you can start to ask some questions, because these guys have to dig within themselves and be able to pull out that win.
And it's not just the not winning, it's the not showing up. That's the bigger thing is you're not competing. That's the biggest problem is to me than losing is not competing.
I agree.
But we got lots more coming up, man. Dana Hunsinger-Benbow from the Indy Star is going to be with us. She did that great article with Todd a week or so ago after Coach Knight returned. If you didn't read that, you missed out. It was a pretty good one. Trina Kuzer's with us today as well, but stay tuned. Dana, she's with us next. We're back with plenty more here from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios. Indiana Sports Beat, Coy O'Leary back right after this. Hello, everybody. Jim Coyle from Indiana Sports Beat. When I'm not covering the Hoosiers, you can find me at Bubba's 33 in Clarksville, located on the northeast corner of I-65 at Veterans Parkway. Bubba's 33 has hand-tossed pizzas, bold burgers, and ice-cold beer from a select list of local craft brewers. An incredible food selection, all made fresh daily. Whether you're meeting the team for that post-win meal in the family dining area or meeting friends for happy hour to watch the game on one of Bubba's 50 TVs. Bubba's 33 in Clarksville. Pizza, burgers, beer.
We all want a winning smile for those championship photos, and that's exactly what you will get at Reynolds Family Dentistry in Sellersburg. Reynolds Family Dentistry has been serving the dental needs of Hoosier families for over 30 years. Let Doctors Roger and Jay Reynolds take care of your family. Just off of I-65 at 809 South Indiana Avenue in Sellersburg. Call 812-246-3368. That's Reynolds Family Dentistry, 812-246-3368.
I'm Rain Shaddy, and I'm a Hoosier. As a toddler, you could always find me running around in a cream and crimson onesie and a red IU hat reminiscent of those worn during the world-famous William Tell timeout, shouting, "Go Hoosiers!" Like many other alum, I chose to make Bloomington my home. As a civic and alumni leader, I have become very knowledgeable about our community and would love to share my insights with you as your realtor. Find me on Facebook or call or text me, Ryan Shaddy, with FC Tucker Bloomington Realtors at 765-623-9093.
Now that warm weather has arrived, it's time to hit the links, and there's no better place than the Golf Club at Eagle Point in Bloomington. Voted best golf course by the readers of the Bloomington Herald-Times, the Golf Club at Eagle Point is under new ownership, has new fairways and bunkers, and it's open to the public. When the round's over, there's cold beer and a full menu at the Eagle Point Pub and Bistro. Call 812-824-1100 to make a tee time. That's 812-824-1100. The Golf Club at Eagle Point in Bloomington.
This is A.J. Moyer.
This is Dan Dockett.
Hey, this is Michael Lewis, former Indiana basketball player.
This is Indiana football coach Tom Allen.
This is Jim Coyle with the Indiana Sports Beat. You can always like and follow us on Facebook. Always follow the show rebroadcast on iTunes, Google Play, iHeartRadio, Spotify. TheDailyHoosier.com is a great place to sign up for each and every day. Or, of course, on 97.7 The Ref in Evansville.
Bad theater seats, cheap Halloween masks, my apartment, all things with obstructed views. Add to these large trucks and buses. 18-wheelers and large buses have big blind spots, and like my apartment, they don't always have the best view. Bus and truck drivers deal with blind spots around the entire vehicle. Always take care not to ride alongside or too close behind them. Our roads, our safety. Learn more at sharetheroadsafely.gov.
Hey, it's Michael Lewis, former Indiana University player and current UCLA assistant basketball coach, and you're listening to Indiana Sports Beat.
Today's guest is brought to you by Reynolds Family Dentistry of Sellersburg. You need $1 million smile for those championship photos, and that's exactly what you'll get with Reynolds Family Dentistry. Welcome to Indiana Sports Beat here on this Tuesday, February 18th, coming to you from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios. Jim Coyle and Todd Leary with you as always. Joined now by Dana Hunsinger-Benbow from Indy Star. Dana, how are you?
I'm good. How are you guys?
Great. Great piece you did with Todd last week. We saw that. I don't know how you squeezed all that good content out of that, but you sure were able to.
Hey, once Todd gets talking, you know how that goes.
It's the subject.
Believe me, I know.
You're giving her a lot of credit. It's the subject who
Yeah,
is supposed to work it out.
See what I mean? Exactly. See what I mean, Dana? I knew what you're going through.
I'm sorry, I missed that.
I said, just trust me. I know what you were going through. We get to enjoy it every day.
Dana, I was telling everyone it was the subject that wrote that article. I mean, I basically wrote it for you, but you know, we'll give you the credit, I guess.
Well, yeah, and it's just a fascinating bird's eye view from you because we had seen what had happened, like on the court and some of the emotion, but to get it, firsthand from someone who was back there with him was just fascinating.
Yeah, it was fun. You know how Coach Knight's guys are. A lot of times, everybody's afraid to talk about what happens behind the scenes and all that. But that's kind of the funny part is those days are over. And I mean, we don't have to hide and don't have to not talk about stuff anymore. And it's just it was kind of an uplifting day. I felt all the way around for a lot of the former players and now fans.
Well, I was in April. I covered his Center Grove. I think I was telling you I covered his Center Grove appearance, and that's when I just remember the audience like looking around at each other, like what is going on? Because he was just. I mean, there were several things that happened. I don't know if you saw the article, but he told everyone that Landon Turner had passed away, and I mean, people were Googling on their phone, like what? And he was telling about some, when he coached the Olympics, and he was talking about Michael Jordan. And then he told the exact same story and replaced Michael Jordan with Damon Bailey. I mean, like the exact same story.
Right.
And so it was really, really sad. It was.
Yeah. And I read the article back then, and I had seen him at that point. And so, I kind of knew the scenario and knew, the state that he was in, but it was weird for people to kind of question, I don't know if but question the article as to whether, whether you should write that. And I'm like, it's exactly what happened. Like you didn't make anything up. Like you didn't embellish anything. You said exactly what happened.
People don't want to see their heroes diminished.
And I don't either. Neither
right.
Yeah, none of us do either. I mean, I
no, I'm just saying that sometimes you don't have a choice. Reality's reality.
Right.
They have to force themselves to deal with it, and because you can't not write about it. I mean, Dana's not going to write about it. It is the story. You don't not do it. So they're just going to have to get over it.
Well, that's the thing. There were like 1,000 people in that gym. What if they woke up the next day and read an article about how funny Bob Knight was and how, because he was funny. But like, what if I hadn't included that? Then it's just like, those people are like, what? That's not what we were at, And so people did. I mean, the backlash was incredible. The love for Bob Knight I had no idea until, they just want him protected, I guess. But, like I told Bob Hamill, then quit putting him out to speak. You know what I mean? Like, you put him out in that position. So.
Yep. Nope. You're right on the money. I mean, it's, and I'm the same way. Like, I feel like I have the right to say what's on my mind about him and all that. But if I hear somebody else criticize him, I'm the first one to jump to his defense and it's like a family member. And so I'm the same way with it. It just is, I'm also not going to, BS everybody. I think he'd be mad at me if I BS'd everybody and acted like everything was roses. So it was a good article. I think that you've done. I mean, that's why I enjoy talking to you. And you can speak to this better than anyone. And Jim knows, like, you just pretty much lob a softball up there and I'll talk for 20 minutes and you can pick out one or two little pieces that you want out of it. And that's what we'll use. But you did a great job on both articles.
Yeah. Well,
and
how
Danny,
did you, like, I know you talked about this on the show, but did you still see glimpses like of his spiciness and funniness? Like, how did you find him really?
No, I mean, back in November when we had the event that he showed up at the Bluebird, we did. I mean, we sat in a room after he was up on stage and all that. I mean, then we sat back in a room and there was, Matt Nover and Brian Evans and Steve Green and John Leskowski and myself, and we were all just sitting back there talking about, stuff. And someone had brought in a picture of him throwing the chair across the floor and asked him to sign it, and he was telling us a story about it, and he still had. He had some, he still had some vigor in his voice. Like, he was still kind of aggressively talking and all that. We didn't see any of that, last week. Like last week he seemed weak and I know when he got out there on the floor, like that whole thing with Vital, like that was close to becoming a catastrophe. Like I don't know what Vital was thinking when it came to grabbing him by the head and all that. But, I mean, what that's like. I mean, you just can't – anyone who's dealing with some of the stuff Coach Knight's dealing with, I mean, you can't you can't go grabbing them, and especially around the head and neck in the area like that. Whatever. I'm not trying to make something out of it. I'm just saying it. I didn't see. He seemed the decline in him from November the 16th at the Bluebird to last week at Assembly Hall was pretty dramatic, and it was scary to see.
Danny, you're from Greenwood, so you're from around here. You get to do a lot of other things as well. Now you had just had an opportunity to go to the NBA All-Star Game. Were you at the All-Star Game? Did you go up there?
Oh yeah. They sent me up for All-Star Weekend because Jay Michael, who's our Pacers beat writer, was like relaxing on a beach somewhere. So because it was his break. So yeah, they sent me up for Sabonis, and it was really cool at Media Day to see. I mean, I was shocked because I was expecting it to be me and maybe Chris Widlick from Channel 8, like at his podium for availability, but all the world, journalists from all over the world, because his dad was such an amazing European player. They were all just like crowded around him asking questions, and he was flipping back between answering us in English, answering them in Lithuanian, and he had some diehard fans there, so it's pretty cool.
And you get to enjoy this being a local person. Where did you start? Was the Star your first job?
Yeah, I got really lucky. I was at the Noblesville Daily Ledger, which is now defunct, covering government, and they, like, within a year, the Star called me up and asked me, so I went over to cover government for the Star, and then I ended up on sports. So I've been there for 20 years. Yeah, like right out of college, kind of.
And the sports, is that where you want to stay? Is that the area where you want to stay in?
Yeah, and, I don't usually cover, like, day-to-day games, play-by-play, but I love I think sports is just, like, I know everyone says this, but it's really life because it's winning, losing, victory, persevering over things. So I love finding, like, the stories about just the athletes who have overcome things and that type of thing. So, yeah, I love that.
Well, when your only thing to compare it to is government, like we're not really taking that, we're not taking sports all that in the good light there, because if government's the only thing you're comparing it to, that's an easy win.
Well, I actually did go to the business desk, so I was reading their earnings, so that's my other comparison. I had Simon Property Group and all those Fortune 500 companies in Indy. I was responsible for covering them, and so every time a quarterly earnings report came out, I had to go over it. So, yeah, that was my other option. So, yeah. Sports for sure.
Yeah, and you talk about the article you did with Todd. I know that Todd got some backlash because some people didn't like the fact that he was just being honest about some of the things that's going on. Tomorrow on the program, we have your colleague Greg Doyle on. He got a little flack because of the question he asked Devontae Green at one of the recent games.
Oh, yeah.
People are funny when they don't understand the context of things, how they can go off. People don't understand always the context of how things are. And I've been in that press room way too many times when asked a player when they haven't played well or whatever, and they've just laid an egg and they say, well, we just come out to play. And that's it. And you want to know, well, what does that mean, man? You got to go on. So people don't understand that there's a lot more to it than just meets the eye.
And I am telling you, you guys know this better than anyone, the IU sports fan base, I'm serious. I mean, I know I haven't been out of Indiana, but at the AFC Championship in 2015, I was there, and I saw it from New England fans, but I swear there are not, I cover Colts, Pacers, there are no fans like IU fans. I mean, they are diehards. So if if they think you slighted or Doyle, that was crazy, the people on Twitter attacking him about that question.
Yeah, it's nuts. And the people question whether Indiana's still a diehard or a blue blood. Trust me, once you are, you are. And the fans, they are exactly. It's a religion. It's a religion in this state.
And in today's world, the hard part of accepting that, in our world and what we do, I guess in the media side of it is fans feel like they can sit back and write on Facebook or Twitter or Instagram or whatever they want to write. They could write how bad somebody played or how bad Archie Miller sucks or how bad whatever they want. But as soon as one of us asks the question, to a kid, oh my gosh, you get attacked by everybody. That, oh, how could you ask a
Yeah.
kid that? He's a 19-year-old kid. How could you put him in that position? And you're just like, man, give me a break.
Hey, 19-year-olds can serve our country, so I think he's all right.
Hey, this
Todd,
is what
how did you respond? How did you respond when people came back at you about talking about it? Did you?
Here's the easy part. Here's the easy part with this. As long as I always tell the truth, I can always back it up. And I have.
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't say anything that wasn't 100% true, and I didn't say anything that didn't happen, and I just witnessed.
And you didn't say anything with malice either.
All
it
I did was repeat exactly what I saw that was in front of me. I also understand this, and I'm a firm believer in this, in that, there's stuff that happens in the locker room that you just don't talk about. I mean, you want to talk to me. If you called me up to do an interview about Neil Reed getting throat punched, I mean, I'm not going to talk to you about it. But if you want to talk to me about what happened in a reunion game 30 years after I played there, yeah, I mean, that's not protected by anything. I mean, that's not, there's no code of conduct I have to worry about that I shouldn't talk about that's out there. And, my grandfather, who was my favorite person in the whole world, had Alzheimer's / dementia. We're not even sure which one it ended up being. I was so young at the time, but I feel like I can talk about Coach Knight in the way that he is, because I've been through it and I witnessed it, and I saw one of my favorite people in the world suffer from it. And so I see Coach Knight doing the same thing, and I'm not saying it to gain attention. I sure don't want to talk about it. I hate it. But I mean, when someone asks me the question, I'm going to answer it. And so that's always been, when it comes to this stuff, I don't understand. I do believe, I'll go to my grave with stuff that, if someone asks me, some wrong person playing in a golf outing asked me about Coach Knight and, in practice and things like that, I'll tell them the stories that they should be able to hear. I'm not going to tell them any craziness. But, if somebody asks me about something that happened in a reunion 30 years after I played, I have no problem telling them about it. It's what happened. It's facts. So, I mean, I was in a room with 200 other people out there. It isn't like I told anything that anyone, you could ask Matt Nover the same stuff and he's going to tell you the same answer I did.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
I think everyone saw it.
Yeah, it's just, here's the thing. Like, I want to protect Coach Knight too. Like I do. I mean, even after everything years later, I mean, he's not been good to me since I left there, but I don't care. Like, I love him. He was my coach, and, he'll always be that to me, and I don't need anything more from him. That's kind of the difference. I think a lot of guys have always been afraid to say something negative, and because they're afraid down the road there'll be some repercussions. Like, I don't need anything from him. I got my 5 years, I got my education, and I moved on. And I mean, I don't feel like everybody does that, and they're afraid that there's going to be some backlash.
Yeah, they sent me to Reno in October as Alford embarked on his new career after UCLA, and I was asking him about Knight, and he's so cautious. And I know he talks to him still, or he said he did. I mean, it's harder now because Gene Katie was telling me he used to talk to him on the phone, but it's harder now, to even have a phone call with him. But Knight was Alford was super cautious about saying anything. He didn't want to talk about it. So I just think it's I don't know. I guess everyone deals with things in their own way. So
yeah, I mean, that just became an issue where, and I had some people ask me questions about it of why I would say this or that, and I just said it was facts of what happened. It wasn't my opinion. It wasn't I wasn't trying to talk bad about him or anything. Like, I hate it. I hate the fact that he's suffering from that, but the facts are what they are. And I mean, what are we supposed to, just to ignore it? I mean, that he would be the last person in the world that would ignore this situation. So I learned this from him.
Yeah. He was the most blunt, tell it like it is.
Straightforward.
So absolutely. Yeah.
Yep, for sure.
Well, Dana, I cannot thank you enough for joining us today. What do you have coming up next that the folks need to make sure they get to and read there in the Indy Star?
Oh, yeah. Well, the guy that created the clockless fourth quarter in the NBA All-Star game is from Indiana, or he's a Ball State professor. So
he created the what?
I did the clockless fourth quarter they used in the NBA All-Star game on
the Elam
on
ending?
Sunday night.
The Elam ending? Yeah.
Yeah, so he's a professor at Ball State, and so I did something before the game that I caught up with him yesterday to talk about what it was like to watch his ending play out. So that's coming today.
Well, that's awesome because all I've heard from everybody is how incredible the All-Star game was. And, man, that is the last thing you ever hear about an All-Star game.
I know. And it was awesome at the end. It was like walk-off free throw, you know what I mean? It was like so cool. So, yeah, he's very excited. And the NBA is working with him to possibly institute it in some format in the league. So
are you kidding
we'll have
me?
to see if that happens.
Wow. I know Mike DeCourcy's not a fan of it, say for college basketball. What is the tournament that they use this in the summer, Dana? There's a tournament that it started in and they used. I can't remember what it is.
Yeah, it's actually called the basketball tournament, TBT.
That's it.
So yeah,
TBT.
And Chris, that's what it is. And Chris Paul was at. I talked to him Saturday, and he is like he's been working with Adam Silver trying to get it somehow put into the league. So it just avoids all those those boring fouling to get to the free throw line and all of that kind of stuff. So.
Well, that's amazing. I didn't know the guy was from Ball. I did not know the guy who came up with that was from Ball State.
Yeah, it is.
Well,
you will know that after you read the article now.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Make sure you get to the Indy Star and find that because I cannot wait. I'm a subscriber. I subscribe, so I cannot wait to read that. I'm looking forward to it. But Dana, awesome. I can't thank you enough for coming on, man. We really appreciate it. Look forward to doing it again, hopefully.
For sure. Have a great day.
See ya.
You as well. There's Dana Hunsinger Bimbo from the Indy Star joining us here on Indiana Sports Beat. Todd, we got to get that guy his name and contact info from her. Have him on. I did not realize that. That's kind of cool. But that blows me away that they're looking at possibly doing more of that at the NBA level. But, man, they received a lot of support.
I would not count on that becoming a thing.
Yeah, I hear you there. Hey, we
would have never had the Reggie Miller 8 seconds in
you got that
in
right.
New York City.
Exactly right, man. Hey, we got a lot more coming up here on Indiana Sports Beat with Coy O'Leary coming to you from the Golf Club Eagle Point Studio. Stay tuned. We're back to finish out this hour right after this. Hello, everybody. Jim Coyle from Indiana Sports Beat. When I'm not covering the Hoosiers, you can find me at Bubba's 33 in Clarksville, located on the northeast corner of I-65 at Veterans Parkway. Bubba's 33 has hand-tossed pizzas, bold burgers, and ice-cold beer from a select list of local craft brewers. An incredible food selection, all made fresh daily. Whether you're meeting the team for that post-win meal in the family dining area or meeting friends for happy hour to watch the game on one of Bubba's 50 TVs. Bubba's 33 in Clarksville. Pizza, burgers, beer.
We all want a winning smile for those championship photos, and that's exactly what you will get at Reynolds Family Dentistry in Sellersburg. Reynolds Family Dentistry has been serving the dental needs of Hoosier families for over 30 years. Let Doctors Roger and Jay Reynolds take care of your family. Just off of I-65 at 809 South Indiana Avenue in Sellersburg. Call 812-246-3368. That's Reynolds Family Dentistry, 812-246-3368.
I'm Rain Shaddy, and I'm a Hoosier. As a toddler, you could always find me running around in a cream and crimson onesie and a red IU hat reminiscent of those worn during the world-famous William Tell timeout, shouting, "Go Hoosiers!" Like many other alum, I chose to make Bloomington my home. As a civic and alumni leader, I have become very knowledgeable about our community and would love to share my insights with you as your realtor. Find me on Facebook or call or text me, Ryan Shaddy, with FC Tucker Bloomington Realtors at 765-623-9093.
Now that warm weather has arrived, it's time to hit the links, and there's no better place than the golf club at Eagle Point in Bloomington. Voted best golf course by the readers of the Bloomington Herald-Times, the golf club at Eagle Point is under new ownership, has new fairways and bunkers, and it's open to the public. When the round's over, there's cold beer and a full menu at the Eagle Point Pub and Bistro. Call 812-824-1100 to make a tee time. That's 812-824-1100. The golf club at Eagle Point in Bloomington.
This is AJ Moye.
This is Dan Dockett.
Hey, this is Michael Lewis, former Indiana basketball player.
This is Indiana football coach Tom Allen.
This is Jim Coyle with the Indiana Sports Beat. You can always like and follow us on Facebook. Always follow the show rebroadcast on iTunes, Google Play, iHeartRadio, Spotify.
TheDailyHoosier.com is a great place to sign up for each and every day, or, of course, on 97.7 The Ref in Evansville.
Bad theater seats, cheap Halloween masks, my apartment, all things with obstructed views. Add to these large trucks and buses. 18-wheelers and large buses have big blind spots, and like my apartment, they don't always have the best view. Bus and truck drivers deal with blind spots around the entire vehicle. Always take care not to ride alongside or too close behind them. Our roads, our safety. Learn more at sharetheroadsafely.gov.
Hi, this is AJ Moye, and you're listening to Indiana Sports Beat with Jim Coyle.
This segment is brought to you by Bubba's 33 in Clarksville. Pizza, burgers, beer.
Well, that gets you fired up. Welcome back to Indiana Sports Beat. Coyle Lee with you here on this Tuesday, February 18th, coming to you from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios. Just wrapped up with Dana Hunsinger Bimbo from Indy Star. Fun interview, man. She's fun. Can't wait to have her back on.
Yep, she writes a lot of good stuff. She does
Absolutely.
a good job.
I'm looking forward to that article she's talking about, the Elam Ending guy. I had to get his name, but the fact I did not realize that guy was from Ball State. That's amazing. We got to try to get him on here. That would be a unique conversation.
Yeah, I mean it's an interesting it's a twist. I don't think that we'll ever see college basketball or
any,
the NBA or anything go to
yeah.
it, but something for like the G League or that TBT and all that stuff. I mean that is interesting. It's something that gives it a different a different viewership than just watching your typical game.
And you've got to be different, otherwise you're just like everybody else.
Right. I mean, who's going to want to go watch it?
You've already got 1,000 basketball leagues out there, so
right.
Yeah, you've got to be something.
It's like
slightly
the
different.
XFL today, like what it's doing different with having everybody in the league over 50 years old. I mean, that's cool. That's a cool thing. People will watch that.
Yeah, they.
It's like a bunch of fat old men out there. It's just exactly what everybody wants to watch.
Looks like a bunch of me and yous out there.
I mean, it makes no sense.
Daytona 500, didn't talk about that a lot yesterday. It wrapped up yesterday. We talked about it on the show that it was coming. That was I think only the second time in 67 years that it would finish on a Monday, and man, what a finish it had! Wow.
Yeah,
final lap.
That was incredible. I mean, that's scary, interesting. I mean, exciting, everything, all in the last two laps.
The good news is Ryan Newman, who was leading the Daytona 500 on that final lap from South Bend, Indiana, and as you know, if you watch NASCAR races, those super speedway races, they usually don't end well. And this one did not. As he took a shot, he got out of sorts and ended up going to the air, flipping, and got hit hard sideways. And they've made that pretty damn safe. NASCAR is pretty safe.
If he survived that crash, they've made it pretty darn safe.
Well, he did, but
nasty.
he's in serious condition, but non-life-threatening injuries is what you want to hear, and that's exactly the situation. Don't know how serious he's hurt, but I'm sure that it's bad, but it's not life-threatening, and that's all you care about.
And so the only way we would make this comment is because it's non-life-threatening, thankfully. But I mean, how close of an ending is that to Talladega Nights? I mean, the movie Talladega Nights, where he flips upside down and
at the very last lap,
finishes the race upside down.
Well, and unfortunately, it brought back a lot of memories of Dale Earnhardt Sr.
Sure.
He died on that same fourth turn. You know, you're coming out of turn 4 at Daytona, where this all kind of happened, and it's the same area. You're like, oh wow, because
and you know what? Like you things happen for a reason, and you hate that it had to cost a life at the time and all that. But there's probably a strong possibility that Ryan Newman doesn't survive that if it weren't for Dale Earnhardt and all the changes and improvements they made to the safety after that crash.
You are right on. If this happens 20 years ago, he doesn't survive
for sure.
That.
Yeah, no way.
Because the very things that took Dale Earnhardt, he would have survived had he had the benefit of the stuff that his crash brought forth. The safer walls. If you notice the walls, they have the safer barriers.
Right. Yep.
That was one thing that would have saved him, I believe. And then that's called the Hans, the head and neck system. That is what ultimately, I believe, took his life, with his head snapping forward.
Right.
Now they use that Hans device, and that came directly Well, it was already invented, but NASCAR had not adopted. NASCAR, the good old boys, and he was one of them. He was the last guy to use that stuff.
Right.
He was open face helmet. He didn't have he looked like Evil Knievel,
smoking a cigarette going around the track.
Exactly. One of the greatest stories I ever heard was Jeff Gordon talk about when it may have been his rookie season or whatever, but he said they're at Talladega or someplace like that. And they're going 220 miles an hour down a backstretch. And he said he's white-knuckled on that steering wheel. He said he's got a car to his left or to his right. He looks over at him, and he said, there's a car that just rolls up on my left and stops right beside me. And he looks over, and he said Dale Earnhardt just looked over at him and got a big old smile on his face and waved at him. He said, we're in the middle. He said, I've got cars going 220 miles an hour in my windows, and this guy's waving at me and smiling at me.
Yeah, I heard a guy, and I'll never be able to get rid of the visual of it, but a guy was describing what NASCAR used to be like, and he said, well, the difference between today and then is when Dale Earnhardt used to finish his races, his cigarette tray was full. His ashtray was full in his car, and I could never forget that because it kind of explains the differences in the way it used to be and how they used to. I could just picture those guys back in the old days, and they probably still had two seats in their car at that point.
But the funny thing is, they were still going 200 miles an hour.
Yeah, I know, it's crazy,
dude. There was one guy, and I'll have to look this up or have Jake look it up. He drove around with a monkey in his car, a NASCAR driver. During races,
Pete is going to be going crazy. You better stop this conversation. They'll be calling us up to find out who it is.
Yeah, this was way back. But he drove around with a monkey in his car until one time I think it attacked him during a race. Oh my God! I mean, some of those stories from old NASCAR or old sports in general.
Right.
There is nothing like the old school sports stories. When you hear those guys telling those, man,
it really is. I mean, you get the old Red Auerbachs, and you even get Arnold Palmer talking about the old days of Ben Hogan in golf and things like that. I mean, those stories to the common day athlete and stuff is that's fun to hear.
The greatest photo in Kentucky Derby history. There's one where these two guys, the two jockeys, they're down the stretch. And they're both reaching over, grabbing each other.
Trying to pull it back.
Yes, they're sitting there fighting each other down the stretch of the Kentucky Derby.
Full contact horse racing. That would be something that people would definitely tune in if that was legal.
I mean, that stuff, it's just a good old days, man. You can't do that stuff anymore, but man, oh man, is it funny and fun to talk about. Good old stuff. Yeah, I had a good time watching the Daytona 500. Got to watch that thing finish up. A lot of talk of John Beeline back to college basketball because a lot of talk that he's going to be that situation is not working out with in Cleveland. And I can't say I'm surprised.
I mean, who didn't see that it wasn't going to work out? I mean,
exactly.
But that transition made no sense.
And guess what, though? No one would blame John Beeline. Look at the money he's going to make from that deal and not have to recruit and do all that stuff. But I think he ends up back in college basketball. But he's got a nest egg that he'll never have to worry about, so he can pull a
67 years old. My guess is he ends up in the analyst booth somewhere.
Or he pulls a Jim Calhoun. Jim Calhoun from UConn, he's coaching some D3 team or something. He's just enjoying coaching.
I thought that was because he got kicked out of the NCAA for rules violations.
No, not Jim Calhoun.
You sure?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. He's just enjoying life.
Well, he definitely had some issues when he left. He was under the NCAA watch. I know that. Yeah. For sure.
Huh.
He's a cheater.
Grant Richardson from Indiana baseball picked up Player of the Week honors from the Big Ten. He had a big time down in Baton Rouge.
Because they're the only Big Ten team that played?
I was wondering that.
I was thinking that as soon as I saw it.
I swear to God, I was thinking that too. I didn't want to say that because he had a great weekend.
No,
he hit 500 against LSU.
I can tell you right now, if I would have won Big Ten Player of the Week and it's because we were the only team that played, 10 years from now, you think anybody's going to know that? Hell no.
I guarantee you. I mean, have that thing all cleaned up. That's right. That plaque is cleaned off and dusted and have that thing shiny.
Beat out Calvert Chaney and Big Dog and Jimmy Jackson and Steve Smith.
It was all me, baby. It was just me.
Magic Johnson. I'd be bringing people from the era that weren't even playing when I was there. Beat them all out.
Yeah, but congrats, man. I think that was an exciting start for Indiana. I think last year wherever they went, maybe it was Tennessee, they got swept in their first weekend.
Actually, you know what? They weren't the only team played because Michigan had a huge win and beat. I'll say Michigan beat like the number 1 ranked team in the country. Did they not? Did I make that up?
That's very possible because they were very good last year. But in one of their games, one of their players gets the boot. There was a pitch, and I don't know if he said anything, but he just kind of took his bat,
Oh my gosh, I saw that.
And boy, he got thrown out in like 2 seconds. He was like, "What? What are you talking about?" So I don't know about that one. That may have been a little quick trigger. I'm not sure but if he was doing that, I get it. You can't let college kids do that stuff. But I'm not sure that.
Do what?
A lot of times when if you got a batter he disagrees with the call, he don't say anything. They'll just take their bat and they draw a line, trying to show you something. And I think that's what the umpire thought he was doing is he drug his bat across the back of the batter's box.
Well, he definitely did that. I saw it. I mean, he definitely did that.
That's why he got booted because the umpire thinks he's showing up.
Man, you used to have to use the F-bomb to get thrown out of anything. Like, how can we be getting thrown out for that stuff?
I'm telling you, I know, but they don't. When it comes to colleges, they don't take much. But
that guy had a bad day at home that morning.
I agree with you
because there's no way you get kicked out for that.
I agree with you 1,000%, man. That was a quick trigger. And
is Ted Valentine do baseball games?
Yeah, that's exactly what it was like. It was exactly what it was like.
Well, hey, here's what you know. That guy would not have been on TV had he not thrown that kid out for that. So there's a very good chance that was Ted Valentine. We wouldn't be talking about it.
I was going to say, we wouldn't be talking about that at all if that hadn't happened.
Freaking Ted Valentine's doing college baseball now.
Yeah, hey, I can't wait. We're only about a week away. When did I say 26th, I think? That Indiana opens up their season at home.
That's not even possible.
Against Butler. Well, I'll be honest with you. I don't understand why they've thrown that game in there because they open up, they're down at LSU playing. They go to, I think, North Carolina, somewhere in North
Alabama
Carolina.
Or something, don't they?
Yeah, someplace down south. And to play again. Then they got one stupid game. They're going to come back home and squeeze in against Butler in freaking February here, and then they're going back south again.
Is it at Baker's Light? Maybe they're playing in Lucas Oil Stadium.
Well, I wish they would. They did play in Indianapolis last year.
Outside, are they?
Oh yeah, it's going to be. I'm going to be in the press box. I assure you.
We need to get Cuban to put a dome on that baseball stadium.
There you go. The Cuban Dome.
Cuban Dome.
I like it.
I do too.
Cuban Dome. Yeah, that was still amazing when he was here. That was still amazing when he walked in. Yeah, the electricity.
I was shocked. I mean, if you had asked me, I would have told you he had been back at different times during Coach Knight's era and stuff like that. Like, I was surprised he hadn't been here since 1981. That surprised me.
Well, you got to think that for so long, his life was on a freaking trajectory of just going up. I mean, he was Mr. .com becomes a billionaire.
But the guy owns planes. I mean, he could be here in 3 hours.
Yeah, but he's doing so much. He's got Shark Tank going. He's got an NBA
not
team.
Not back in Bob Knight's days. Not back in the year 2000.
No, but I don't know that he was. What was he doing at that time?
His net worth started with a B at that time.
Already?
Yeah.
Oh.
I mean, I knew of him.
That's crazy. Craziness.
Yep. But
you know what?
It was cool to have him back, that's for sure.
He'd be a great sponsor.
Yeah, that's true.
This hour, this lifetime brought to you by Mark Cuban.
Yeah.
Forget about this hour, this lifetime.
We would name every segment that we did.
Welcome to the Mark Cuban Show.
Welcome to the,
welcome to the Mark Cuban Show, hosted by Mark Cuban. My guest is Mark Cuban. Today we're going to be talking about Mark Cuban.
Call us every day and tell us what our opinions are going to be.
Exactly. Our guest is Mark Cuban, and today we'll be talking about Mark Cuban.
Whatever Mark Cuban wants us to talk about.
Exactly. Oh, man. Chronic Hoosiers coming up in the next hour. You get to hear
hit the Chronic.
The musings of Chronic Hoosiers, since this is a Chronic Tuesday. Looking forward to that. But, man, the next game is on the road. It's like we got this big lull before you're back at Simon Scott Assembly Hall. Indiana has got to pull.
Pause? That was a moment of silence you just had right there. Is that for a road game?
Yeah, just in memory of the home games.
Memory of the last time we won a home game. We won a road game.
How long ago has that been? That
1990 something.
Yeah, they've only won one home game this entire season. That's at Nebraska, right?
Oh, we did win one this year. That's right.
To be honest with you, I think that the game in New York almost should be counted as a home game.
I don't disagree.
But oh well. To me, it's the same difference.
Anything outside of Assembly Hall is considered a road game. I mean, it might be a road game for the other team too, but it's a road game.
Yeah, especially when UConn, it's like their neighbors. I mean, my gosh, it's like.
Here's the thing you're talking about though. I mean, when you go play an NCAA tournament game, it's not a road game; it's a neutral site game. So why would we not count that? I mean, it seems like it should count. That's the kind of venue you're going to play in.
I agree with you, man. Hey, we got a lot more coming up here on Indiana Sports Beat on this Tuesday. Of course, coming to you from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studio. Stay tuned. We got Chronic Hoosier in the next hour. More to talk about. We're back with all that and more right after this.
She's my sweet little baby. I'm a little lover boy.
Hello, everybody. Jim Coyle from Indiana Sports Beat. When I'm not covering the Hoosiers, you can find me at Bubba's 33 in Clarksville, located on the northeast corner of I-65 at Veterans Parkway. Bubba's 33 has hand-tossed pizzas, bold burgers, and ice-cold beer from a select list of local craft brewers. An incredible food selection, all made fresh daily. Whether you're meeting the team for that post-win meal in the family dining area or meeting friends for happy hour to watch the game on one of Bubba's 50 TVs, Bubba's 33 in Clarksville. Pizza, burgers, beer.
We all want a winning smile for those championship photos, and that's exactly what you will get at Reynolds Family Dentistry in Sellersburg. Reynolds Family Dentistry has been serving the dental needs of Hoosier families for over 30 years. Let Doctors Roger and Jay Reynolds take care of your family. Just off of I-65 at 809 South Indiana Avenue in Sellersburg. Call 812-246-3368. That's Reynolds Family Dentistry, 812-246-3368.
I'm Rain Shaddy, and I'm a Hoosier. As a toddler, you could always find me running around in a cream and crimson onesie and a red IU hat reminiscent of those worn during the world-famous William Tell timeout, shouting, "Go Hoosiers!" Like many other alum, I chose to make Bloomington my home. As a civic and alumni leader, I have become very knowledgeable about our community and would love to share my insights with you as your realtor. Find me on Facebook or call or text me, Ryan Shaddy, with FC Tucker Bloomington Realtors at 765-623-9093.
Now that warm weather has arrived, it's time to hit the links, and there's no better place than the Golf Club at Eagle Point in Bloomington. Voted best golf course by the readers of the Bloomington Herald-Times, the Golf Club at Eagle Point is under new ownership, has new fairways and bunkers, and it's open to the public. When the round's over, there's cold beer and a full menu at the Eagle Point Pub and Bistro. Call 812-824-1100 to make a tee time. That's 812-824-1100. The Golf Club at Eagle Point in Bloomington.
This is AJ Moye.
This is Dan Dockett.
Hey, this is Michael Lewis, former Indiana basketball player.
This is Indiana football coach Tom Allen.
This is Jim Coyle with the Indiana Sports Beat. You can always like and follow us on Facebook. Always follow the show rebroadcast on iTunes, Google Play, iHeartRadio, Spotify. TheDailyHoosier.com is a great place to sign up for each and every day. Or, of course, on 97.7 The Ref in Evansville.
Bad theater seats, cheap Halloween masks, my apartment, all things with obstructed views. Add to these large trucks and buses. 18-wheelers and large buses have big blind spots, and like my apartment, they don't always have the best view. Bus and truck drivers deal with blind spots around the entire vehicle. Always take care not to ride alongside or too close behind them. Our roads, our safety. Learn more at sharetheroadsafely.gov.
You're on the line with Jamal Meeks, former Indiana Hoosier, number 23, 1992. And I'm on the beat with Jim Coyle.
You're going to have to be really good at what you do, and you're not going to be able to beat yourself in those areas when you go on the road. At home, you know as well as I do, sometimes you get the crowd involved and you get some things involved that help you. But on the road, if you turn it over, if you don't rebound, if you're not getting back on defense, you just name one of those little things, it can really tilt the game in a bad way for you. So for us, it's understanding like we're going to have to put together not a perfect game, but we're going to have to put together a perfect effort. We're going to have an effort level one of these nights that says to ourselves, we gave ourselves a chance in this one to win it. We were right there at the end of the game.
All right, we're going to come back.
There's Archie Miller talking about needing a perfect effort rather than a perfect game. That's a good quote to make there, Todd Leary.
It definitely is. And I mean, I think that's one of the things that we have, talked about repeatedly over and over again is it's not so much, the Michigan game, we did not necessarily expect them to win, but we expected them to compete. And everything he described is pretty much the definition of competing. And, that's what's been so difficult to swallow in some of these losses is, they've just not even the home game against Purdue with all of the hoopla going on with Coach Knight being there and all that. I mean, I did feel like I watched that game on tape over and over again. And in the first half, I felt like they competed. In the second half, I felt like Purdue came out and smacked them in the mouth and they didn't compete. Like they literally weren't in the game. If Indiana would have gotten close, I felt like Purdue could have pulled away at any point in time in that second half. But it just, and that's just one example. I mean, that Michigan game, I felt like Michigan did just what they needed to do. I mean, the second half, it was never even in question, really.
Jennifer said, I watched the Archie Miller show last night. People that's already read that one.
Yep.
Alan says, the basketball team's identity is we let the opposing team score. They come back, set their defense, and we are in trouble. Just an aggravated Alan from Birdseye.
I mean, I get it because we should be able to right now to say, hey, you know what? Our identity is this, and, we just didn't do it well enough tonight. Like, we should be able to say that. But we don't even know it. I can't even describe them. And I have watched, outside of the coaching staff, I'd probably be willing to bet I've watched this team on film as much as anyone. And I can't identify what we are trying to do with that offense. Like in the Michigan game, this is something that was interesting. In the Michigan game, Joey Brunk shot the first 2 shots. Justin Smith shot the next 3 shots. And then it was helter-skelter from there. Then we had no identity of what we were doing. Then we had Rob Finnessy shooting a shot here, and Trace Jackson-Davis really never got involved. And, there were – I've only watched through the first half of that game so far, but there were 5 entry passes into Trace Jackson-Davis that were wide open. The problem with them was they were too early in the shot clock, and we don't look inside until it gets late into the shot clock.
Same things. Tim says hearing the same things about Crean and Archie has not created a culture, not teaching defense, not a top 10 coach. Only things said after losses, shots didn't fall, et cetera, et cetera. Well, it's easy when things aren't going well. It's easy for people to find, or for any of us even to find negative things. That's easy.
There's only so many excuses you can say after a game, though. I mean, I like hearing him talk about the effort level. I mean, here's the difference. Okay, so let's play that tape again Thursday morning, and let's see if we can talk about after the game Wednesday if the effort level looked different. And if it didn't, the same players are on the floor. What's the definition of insanity? I mean, same thing over and over again, expecting a different result.
And I think that's the thing that so many people are seeing, though. We hear Archie talk and talk, but we don't see Archie do anything. Archie
but I've not
talks
heard him.
again.
And I could be wrong. Maybe I have, and I've just forgotten. Maybe he's the benefit of time makes me forget things. But I've not heard him talk about, specifically about just the effort level. I mean, that whole speech he just gave in the entry right there was all about effort. And so if the effort isn't there, forget the result. I mean, whatever, we'll deal with the result as long as we get the effort. And that's the thing. I think the result will be good if the effort was there.
But here's the problem. This is not the first time we've heard this about Archie Miller's teams at Indiana. We've been hearing this for 3 years. Same thing for 3 years. Effort at this time of year for Archie Miller's teams at Indiana. It has happened 3 straight seasons. I'm not saying that I know the reason, or that I'm blaming anybody for it. I'm just pointing it out because it's a fact. This has happened 3 consecutive seasons now that he's been here. They fall off at the end of the season and pretty much disappear.
I mean, I don't know if I agree with you or not. I mean, do you think Juwan Morgan didn't play hard? I mean, you're saying last year Juwan Morgan didn't play hard?
As a team.
You're questioning effort. I mean, that's what I'm saying.
Overall as a team, there are many instances we could go back last year and you're seeing the fans say the same exact thing because the same things are happening. They don't they're in the midst last year when they were in the midst of that slump. There were games where they're going to come out and just play like they're crazy people,
right?
And they didn't,
right.
And you're like, what the hell, man? And I think that's what people are seeing, and that's what frustrates them. I don't have the answers, and I'm not pretending that I do. And I'm not saying whose fault that this is, because there are so many factors that go into it. There is no one person to blame for virtually anything in life. I mean, there's always a combination
but
of things.
What I'm saying with what he just said, what I'm saying is let's play that same clip. Remember this, Jake? Thursday, let's play that same clip back, and let's see how we analyze the effort. And if the effort wasn't there, what steps we think he took within that game to improve that, which would mean putting guys on the bench. Because I mean, I'm with you. I'm tired of having the same thoughts and frustrations, game in and game out, and every road game and season after season and all that. Like, I'm with you. I totally agree with you.
But we've seen him talk about rotations and players and lineups and threaten and threaten and threaten, and yet nothing ever changes. He doesn't change his rotations. He has shortened them up, but he talked about, he really hinted at a change in the starting lineup, and yet nothing changed. Everything was the same.
Yeah, I agree with you. But the difference is in so if you change the starting lineup, if Jim Coyle got to pick the starting lineup for tomorrow night's game, who would it be?
That's a great question. I think you got to go with Al Durham. I think you got to go with Rob Finney. I think you got to go with Trace Jackson Davis. Now here's where you got. Let's see who I'm missing. Another guard.
You got Justin Smith, Joey Brunk, Jerome Hunter, Armand Franklin.
I'm gonna go with those two. I'm gonna go with Al Durham, Rob Finney, Trace Jackson Davis, Justin Smith, and Jerome Hunter to start the game.
That's exactly how I would start it. I agree with you.
And you bring in those guys.
And you depending on whether I needed a guard or whether I needed a big guy, as to whether the first guy off the bench would be Joey Brunk or Armand Franklin.
And especially it depends on the team you're going against, because there's been a lot of times this season where this lineup would have been a really, really good lineup to have against the opposing team. We just didn't see it.
Yeah, I mean, I see, here's the matchup issue you've got against Minnesota is Daniel Oturu is, he's a mobile big guy who can step out and shoot 3-pointers. If Joey Brunk starts the game tomorrow night and he starts out on him, it's going to look really similar to the same way the game started against Michigan, where he's going to get beat on defense repeatedly over and over again because he either can't get out and help because he's too slow, or he just a guy makes a quick move inside and he's too slow to stop him. And, I'm not picking on Joey Brunk. I think there are spots when Joey Brunk could be used, but I don't think it's as a starter playing 30 minutes a game. And, forgive me if I'm a bad person for saying that. I don't feel like I have to have the same opinion as everybody else does, because he's a great kid. He's a great, great kid. What I'm saying about him is what I think is best for the basketball team. And that's the difference between what some people want to hear and don't want to hear. Is I think he's a great kid. I think he can bring a lot of things to this team. I don't necessarily think it needs to be as the starting center for Indiana in order to be the most effective team they can be.
I agree 1,000%, because this is not a team. But back in other eras when you played, the opposing teams, they had to match up with Indiana. Indiana didn't so much have to match up with them. And right now, Indiana has to match up with these other teams. They're not having to match up with Indiana, but Indiana's not making an adjustment.
Even in the Bob Knight days, like we didn't play with a team this slow. Like, we didn't play with a team that has, Joey Brunk lumbers down the floor. He can sprint down the floor a time or two here and there. Yes. I've seen him bust his butt. And if anybody, the guy that probably plays the hardest on the floor is probably Joey Brunk. But did your starting
lineup change dependent upon who you were playing?
Sometimes, occasionally it would, but here's what it would do. So I'll tell you what Coach Knight would do in a game like this. Tomorrow night, when they started the game against Minnesota, Justin Smith would be guarding Daniel Oturu. Okay, because he's the only guy from a quickness standpoint. You don't want Trace Jackson Davis on him because he'll get in foul trouble. He's a freshman, and Daniel Oturu is a seasoned veteran that will have Trace Jackson Davis in foul trouble if he starts out guarding him. But he would put Justin Smith on him, and we would double team anytime he got the ball in the post. If Daniel Oturu catches it out on the wing, Justin Smith can guard him out on the wing just fine. He doesn't need help out there. But if he catches it into the post, he would get double teamed. So that would be the difference between what Coach Knight would do tomorrow. I mean, I can't tell you how many games we had. Our starting lineup would be something goofy. And it would be because this is what we wanted to do. It wasn't necessarily the other teams. We had a mismatch or they had a mismatch. It was because this is how we wanted to attack whatever it is they were going to do. And, he would put Justin Smith on Daniel Oturu and we, I think at that point it would eliminate having to, worry about Oturu driving from the outside. If Oturu catches the ball on the 3-point line and Joey Brunk's guarding him, the very first thing he's going to do is clear the floor out and he's going to try to drive against him because he's either going to score or get him in foul trouble. And that'd be the difference between Coach Knight and this team.
Ron in Scottsdale, Arizona completely agrees, but he'd actually start with Justin Smith on the bench and see if that motivates him. I'd start Race Thompson instead. I think he's earned it. That's not a bad little change either. I don't mind that. Race Thompson's not a guy that's probably really going to start for you, but I like what he does when he comes in. He's been efficient.
Agree. I agree with all of that. Here's the only problem. If you go back and watch the Michigan game, even though he wasn't super successful at a bunch of it, offensively, Justin Smith was pretty aggressive. I mean, he was taking some shots early in the shot clock, especially early in the game. And if Race Thompson would do the same thing, I would agree with you. But he won't. I mean, he's too passive on the offensive end right now. And Indiana can't have any more guys on the floor that are passive on the offensive end. I mean, they've got to have everybody being aggressive. And so he would probably be – I might change what I said a minute ago. He might be the first guy I bring in off the bench as a big guy instead of Joey Brunk, especially against Minnesota, because I agree with you. He could match up a little bit better defensively with Oturu. So that's a great point. I like that, Ron.
Yeah, I do. I agree. I had forgotten about him. Well, he's a player that kind of has been coming on slowly. He went through that little injury that he suffered against Michigan State, but he's come back. I mean, he's going to be a solid player for them next year, no matter what. He's the kid that you like. He's in there working hard. That he's just trying to get some minutes.
Yeah, I mean, I would use I think here's something that is interesting. And I think instead of Ron's talking about using the bench as a motivator right now and all that. If you start the game out and you're trying to do something different, this is what was fun about game planning is, if Coach Knight comes up or I'm sorry, I said that was a Freudian slip there. If Archie Miller comes up with a game plan that says, all right, Justin Smith, you're going to guard Oturu. That's different than I'm sure what they're expecting or what the players are thinking or expecting. And if they've got a game plan to try to execute, I think sometimes it changes your effort level and it's almost tricking the guys into playing hard. Because you're asking them to accomplish something that, they're probably not expecting to do. I mean, I bet in this game, Justin Smith's planning on one of the big guys guarding Oturu, and he's planning on guarding the wing player. And if you're asking him to do something, a little bit different, I mean, it might motivate him in a different way. And if they don't do it, if he doesn't play his butt off and successfully, it doesn't even have to stop him, but successfully accomplish what you're trying to do, yeah, you go to that bench right away. I'd bring in Race Thompson immediately. But I mean, I don't know. Everybody thinks that, throwing guys on the bench is the ultimate motivator and all that. And it's a fine line. You got to be careful because you can lose the team pretty easily if you just start benching everybody. And I know that that's coming across wrong because I am the person that believes the bench is the ultimate motivator. But there are certain guys I'm not sure it would work that well for.
On
and
this
I think
team,
Justin Smith might be one.
This team has a lot of guys that don't kind of fit into the normal
fragile
yes.
personalities.
In other words, folks, that means soft.
Soft. Yeah.
Soft. SOFT, soft. Hey, we got a lot more coming up here. Chronic Hoosier's going to join us next on the program, and we got plenty more to talk about after that as well. Illinois is in action tonight, but we got a lot of games. Purdue, Maryland, we're going to talk about those later in the show. UK, LSU, we'll talk about that as well. John Beeline, back to college basketball, maybe. We'll talk about that a little bit more. Stay tuned. Up next, Chronic Hoosier here on Indiana Sports Beat, coming to you from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios. Back right after this.
Hello, everybody. Jim Coyle from Indiana Sports Beat. When I'm not covering the Hoosiers, you can find me at Bubba's 33 in Clarksville, located on the northeast corner of I-65 at Veterans Parkway. Bubba's 33 has hand-tossed pizzas, bold burgers, and ice-cold beer from a select list of local craft brewers. An incredible food selection, all made fresh daily. Whether you're meeting the team for that post-win meal in the family dining area or meeting friends for happy hour to watch the game on one of Bubba's 50 TVs. Bubba's 33 in Clarksville. Pizza, burgers, beer.
We all want a winning smile for those championship photos, and that's exactly what you will get at Reynolds Family Dentistry in Sellersburg. Reynolds Family Dentistry has been serving the dental needs of Hoosier families for over 30 years. Let Doctors Roger and Jay Reynolds take care of your family. Just off of I-65 at 809 South Indiana Avenue in Sellersburg. Call 812-246-3368. That's Reynolds Family Dentistry, 812-246-3368.
I'm Rain Shaddy, and I'm a Hoosier. As a toddler, you could always find me running around in a cream and crimson onesie and a red IU hat reminiscent of those worn during the world-famous William Tell timeout, shouting, "Go Hoosiers!" Like many other alum, I chose to make Bloomington my home. As a civic and alumni leader, I have become very knowledgeable about our community and would love to share my insights with you as your realtor. Find me on Facebook or call or text me, Ryan Shaddy, with FC Tucker Bloomington Realtors at 765-623-9093.
Now that warm weather has arrived, it's time to hit the links, and there's no better place than the Golf Club at Eagle Point in Bloomington. Voted best golf course by the readers of the Bloomington Herald-Times, the Golf Club at Eagle Point is under new ownership, has new fairways and bunkers, and it's open to the public. When the round's over, there's cold beer and a full menu at the Eagle Point Pub and Bistro. Call 812-824-1100 to make a tee time. That's 812-824-1100. The Golf Club at Eagle Point in Bloomington.
This is AJ Moye.
This is Dan Dawkins.
Hey, this is Michael Lewis, former Indiana basketball player.
This is Indiana football coach Tom Allen.
This is Jim Coyle with the Indiana Sports Beat. You can always like and follow us on Facebook. Always follow the show rebroadcast on iTunes, Google Play, iHeartRadio, Spotify. TheDailyHoosier.com is a great place to sign up for each and every day. Or, of course, on 97.7 The Ref in Evansville.
Bad theater seats, cheap Halloween masks, my apartment, all things with obstructed views. Add to these large trucks and buses. 18-wheelers and large buses have big blind spots, and like my apartment, they don't always have the best view. Bus and truck drivers deal with blind spots around the entire vehicle. Always take care not to ride alongside or too close behind them. Our roads, our safety. Learn more at sharetheroadsafely.gov.
Hey, it's Michael Lewis, former Indiana University player and current UCLA assistant basketball coach, and you're listening to Indiana Sports Beat.
All my friends know the low rider.
Hey, welcome back to Indiana Sports Beat with Coyle Leary here on this Tuesday, February 18th. Jim Coyle with you here. Of course, now joined by our good friend Chronic Hoosier, because there wouldn't be a Chronic Tuesday without him. Chronic Hoosier. Chronic, how are you, sir?
Always good to be back, Jim. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Couldn't have a good week without having you on for certain, man. Indiana, we're reaching the end of towards the end of the season, Chronic, and everyone's looking towards tournament time, of course. That's what's next on the agenda, and the Big Ten has been a joy to watch. And now, though, it's coming down to there's a couple of teams, and Indiana's one of those teams that's going to be jockeying for a spot in that tournament, and they're right there, Chronic. They're right there, and they're struggling to get there, but we know they have the talent, but can they put the consistency together?
That's the question of the year right now. It certainly remains to be seen exactly what March is going to hold in store for the Hoosiers right now. What's unquestionable at this point is they very much still have their destiny in their own hands. 6 games remaining here this season, at least in the regular season portion of it. The thing right now is they're running out of runway. They are. There's only so many games left. Now, fortunately, every game in the Big Ten is going to give you a quality win if you can earn it. Unfortunately for Indiana, as you look at the remaining 6 games, they got 3 on the road, 3 at home. The majority of which coming against, the lower half of the Big Ten. You still got Penn State left. But other than that, and Illinois for that matter, but you get Minnesota twice, you get Purdue, you get Wisconsin. Not necessarily the Big Ten powerhouses this year. Certainly not pushovers by any means, too. I mean, I think every one of these teams has potential to beat Indiana, and you can say the inverse is true as well. Indiana has the potential to beat every one of the remaining teams on the schedule. Will it happen? It remains to be seen. Highly doubtful. They run the table at this point, absent a miracle. I think right now, as an Indiana fan, you've got to see something here that gives you reason to believe that March isn't going to be a disappointment for a 4th consecutive year here. Because as much as the Iowa win kind of gave Indiana and its fans a big shot of confidence, that loss in Ann Arbor just absolutely erased everything, if not took a half step or a full step backwards as far as confidence in the team, confidence in the staff, confidence in what they're going to be able to accomplish by season's end here.
Yeah, and I think we've seen a lot of different teams in the Big Ten alone. Ohio State, Michigan, take this big dip in the middle of the season. Both teams, those 2 teams that were ranked in the top 5, and then ended up not being ranked at all, but they're coming back. We've seen a lot of teams go through this midseason lull that different reasons for whatever it is. Indiana, one of those teams as well. They're coming out of it a little slower than some of these other teams, and but they've got to get there. And we know they, like I said previously, we know they have the talent. It's getting it put together. Fans are getting a little frustrated with the situation, as you can imagine. But that's not going to do anything. But there is a lot of frustration out there, Chronic. And what do you suggest to those people that are feeling that? Because nothing's going to change this season, so that's something they might as well not even think about.
No, and I'm not sure what the anecdote here is. One thing I can say is it's probably not conducive to go full meltdown mode after every loss. But I think a lot of that frustration you're seeing echoed in the words of this staff right now. Archie's show last night, his weekly radio show, talking about the frustrations of still having to be coaching effort at this point in the season, at this point in his tenure here at Indiana. And that's certainly understandable. It is extremely frustrating to watch a team that's got so much talent, albeit limited. That certainly has its shortcomings. But, as we've seen, these guys have the potential to play some really good competitive ball. And while it's easy to say, this is a home and away thing, of the last 3 home games they've played, you can say about 3 of those halves of basketball were solid basketball. Certainly the entirety of the Iowa game. You look at the second half of Maryland, but this is still a team that's capable of a clunker in the first half of Maryland, pretty much from bell to bell against Purdue. It's not just a home away thing right now with Indiana. I think that's the trap that a lot of folks are falling into. Is this is a team that just can't play on the road? Well, yes, they struggle mightily on the road, but they also are prone to forgetting their own identity at home sometimes. Now, fortunately, the benefit of the Assembly Hall crowd can kind of shock their conscience back to knowing who they are and how they're supposed to play. And, unfortunately on the road, there is no such boost to get them back in it. You look at the second half of the Michigan game, they just pulled within 7 to close the first half, came back out, got the opening bucket. And then I believe they went on a 21-6 run, or gave up a 21-6 run, let Michigan stretch it out to 20 points. And that was pretty much the night before the second half ever really got started. So I think at this point for Indiana fans, there's probably not a whole lot of changing that's going to happen other than some tweaks in the rotation, which, we'll see just how effective they are. You saw at Ann Arbor, there's still some guys here that are showing us what they're capable of. Career night, at least season high night for Deron Davis, perfect from the floor. Al Durham played a hell of a game. On any given night, there's guys who can step up and contribute. What they got to do is they got to find a way to not only feed the hot hand, but they got to find a way, as Archie said last night, you got to get Trace engaged. You have got to play to your strengths. And I think that's one of the biggest shortcomings with this team is when the going gets tough, they just fold it up and pack it on in. And they've got to find a way now with just 6 remaining, with the tournament still in play, with the Big Ten tournament still on the horizon, where they can certainly raise, their prospects of an NC2A bid as well as a seed line. They got to figure it out, and they got to do it here real quick because you still got, 3 of the next 4 are going to be on the road with some tough games. The Barn's historically been tough on Indiana. Mackey is one of the toughest places in the country to play, and then they got to go to Spaceship Assembly Hall still, where Illinois knows how to ratchet it up. So, there's a lot of challenges, but there's a whole lot of opportunities here. The story has not been completely written yet for this team. And as much as people want to write it off, I would caution, do so at your own peril, because there are a lot of folks that did that last year after Indiana had that abysmal stretch in the middle of the conference season and then proceeded to finish extremely strong, came up just short of the tournament. And I wouldn't be surprised to see another similar run here to close this season.
What do you say to the fans who talk about that they shouldn't be in the position of having to make that run again this late into a regime? There's 2 arguments to this. You got people that are talking about the effort that players aren't giving, and then they're talking about, well, is Archie doing the job that they would like to see done? So it's 2 different schools of thought there, and there's probably a little bit of both, but it's not both of them heavily on one end, I believe.
I think it is naive to believe that this is a binary. It's either this or that type situation right now, as far as where Indiana is struggling. Obviously, the players have to go out and make plays, plain and simple. I mean, that's just it. It's up to these guys, to keep the ball moving, to connect with one another, to communicate. I mean, you look at some of the defensive struggles that this team faces, and this team is going to rise and fall with its defense night in, night out. Particularly you look at how they rebound. But that extends to the other end of the floor as well. They have to attack the basket. They have to find a way to get themselves to the foul strike. As much as the coaches clearly have game plans to do both of those, ultimately it falls on the players to execute that plan. Now, all that being said, I don't think the staff is fairly without some culpability in what's going on here as well. You can look at, and I think Archie acknowledges much last night in the press conference, for whatever it's worth, recognizing whatever we're doing defensively against Michigan, we can't keep doing that anymore. And I don't know if that's the front runner for the most obvious statement made this year, but it's certainly in the top of that list because Michigan's spacing absolutely diced up Indiana's defense. Their pick and rolls made them look just absolutely juvenile out there on the defensive end. The staff has got to find a way to get across what they're trying to do with this staff. I had a really good conversation with Coach Brian Tonsani at the Assembly Call meetup after the Purdue game. And as a coach, as an educator, he's a teacher. The thing he said that continues to resonate with me is, in education and coaching, it's a pretty simple equation. You've got a pupil and there's a message. And not every message is going to fit with every pupil. And not every pupil is going to be receptive to receiving your messages. And I think that's very much a good description of what's in play right now. Because clearly whatever messages this coaching staff's trying to communicate aren't necessarily landing home with the guys they need to. And, I think as you look across the bench, there's such a diversity of players and styles and just personalities that it's pretty understandable that one message may not resonate across the whole bunch. I think the challenge right now, though, is figuring out who is still teachable at this point and what is it going to.
Thank you, sir. I hope you have a great day.
Hey, you as well, Jim. I'll talk to you next week, man.
All right, buddy. Have a good one.
See ya.
Hello, everybody. Jim Coyle from Indiana Sports Beat. When I'm not covering the Hoosiers, you can find me at Bubba's 33 in Clarksville, Located on the northeast corner of I-65 at Veterans Parkway, Bubba's 33 has hand-tossed pizzas, bold burgers, and ice-cold beer from a select list of local craft brewers. An incredible food selection, all made fresh daily. Whether you're meeting the team for that post-win meal in the family dining area or meeting friends for happy hour to watch the game on one of Bubba's 50 TVs, Bubba's 33 in Clarksville. Pizza, burgers, beer.
We all want a winning smile for those championship photos, and that's exactly what you will get at Reynolds Family Dentistry in Sellersburg. Reynolds Family Dentistry has been serving the dental needs of Hoosier families for over 30 years. Let Doctors Roger and Jay Reynolds take care of your family. Just off of I-65 at 809 South Indiana Avenue in Sellersburg. Call 812-246-3368. That's Reynolds Family Dentistry, 812-246-3368.
I'm Rain Shaddy, and I'm a Hoosier. As a toddler, you could always find me running around in a cream and crimson onesie and a red IU hat reminiscent of those worn during the world-famous William Tell timeout, shouting, "Go Hoosiers!" Like many other alum, I chose to make Bloomington my home. As a civic and alumni leader, I have become very knowledgeable about our community and would love to share my insights with you as your realtor. Find me on Facebook or call or text me, Ryan Shaddy, with FC Tucker Bloomington Realtors at 765-623-9093.
Now that warm weather has arrived, it's time to hit the links, and there's no better place than the golf club at Eagle Point in Bloomington. Voted best golf course by the readers of the Bloomington Herald-Times, the golf club at Eagle Point is under new ownership, has new fairways and bunkers, and it's open to the public. When the round's over, there's cold beer and a full menu at the Eagle Point Pub and Bistro. Call 812-824-1100 to make a tee time. That's 812-824-1100. The golf club at Eagle Point in Bloomington.
This is AJ Moye.
This is Dan Dockett.
Hey, this is Michael Lewis, former Indiana basketball player.
This is Indiana football coach Tom Allen.
This is Jim Coyle with the Indiana Sports Beat. You can always like and follow us on Facebook. Always follow the show rebroadcast on iTunes, Google Play, iHeartRadio, Spotify. TheDailyHoosier.com is a great place to sign up for each and every day. Or, of course, on 97.7 The Ref in Evansville.
Bad theater seats, cheap Halloween masks, my apartment, all things with obstructed views. Add to these large trucks and buses. 18-wheelers and large buses have big blind spots, and like my apartment, they don't always have the best view. Bus and truck drivers deal with blind spots around the entire vehicle. Always take care not to ride alongside or too close behind them. Our roads, our safety. Learn more at sharetheroadsafely.gov.
Hi, this is AJ Moye, and you're listening to Indiana Sports Beat with Jim Coyle.
Oh, would've been, could've been, wasn't it even gone? Well, the car was on block.
Welcome back to Indiana Sports Beat here on this Tuesday, February 18th. Jim Coyle with you, along with Todd Leary. Jake's keeping us on the track. Coming to you from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios, of course. Just wrapped up with Chronic Hoosier since it's a Chronic Tuesday. Been a great show so far.
Jake loves Tuesdays. Gets to hit the Chronic.
Yeah. Taco Tuesday, man. Taco Tuesday.
Yeah, not a taco eater.
A lot of talk of John Beeline being back and possibly coming back to college basketball. And, of course, anybody that's having troubles, the Indiana fan base is one of those jumping on, oh, that'd be great. Yeah, whatever. You're not, Todd's pointed out that the John Beeline's probably like 67.
Yeah, I mean, what do we want, a Band-Aid for 2 or 3 years? No,
exactly. I mean, and then you look back, John Beeline's first couple of years at Michigan, he was like 42 and 56 or something. So
right. I mean, you're gonna have to give him 5 years. That's the thing. I mean, you're gonna have to give anybody that you would hire, including Archie Miller, 5 years. So let's give him 5 years. And at the end of 5 years, if we're not in a better position, then everyone should pile on. Yeah,
I don't know. You can't go that long because this program right now, it looks next year is. Which will be the final year. If there's no improvement, next year will be his last year. That I can promise you.
If there's no improvement, don't disagree with you.
But that's only 4
I don't
years.
disagree.
So plus you've got a new AD that'll be coming in. We don't know who that's going to be. That's another thing. It's going to be either I'm fairly confident it will be either Scott Dolson or Pat Kraft. I'm pretty confident of that. But between those two, I don't know. And you're talking about two different types of personalities. I don't know that any of that plays in. I mean, Pat Kraft played football at Indiana. I don't think that has any bearing on the basketball coach and any of that stuff. So don't get all worked up about who that is. But the fact that a new AD is coming in, it's on him now. It then becomes on his shoulders on what's happening, whether that's Scott or Pat Kraft. The basketball program is the flagship program of Indiana University. And if it's not doing well, you're not doing well.
And I will just say this, and I'm not intensely lobbying in any direction, but I'll say this. Scott Dolson was around and a manager for Bob Knight. He's been around the program when it's won national championships. He's been around the program when it's struggled. He's been around since, I believe, 1985. So he's been through the way ups and the way downs, coaching changes. He's seen what works and doesn't work. From a basketball perspective, Scott Dolson would be, without question, the hire for AD. Now, the only issue with Scott Dolson that I see is I believe the last several, if not most of the ADs have all had law degrees. And Scott, I don't believe, has a law degree. So I don't know if that factors in or doesn't. I don't have a clue. I'm admitting I don't know.
And me either. And that comes down to negotiating the contracts and all that stuff. But to me, pay somebody to do that. Pay an attorney to do that.
I don't disagree.
I'm like,
I would.
I'd rather have a guy that has more experience as being an athletics director than being an attorney. You can hire an attorney.
I mean, here's something that I never factored into this. When I was growing up and I was just a naive, stupid kid in high school, I always wanted to be an NBA GM. And then I found out or figured out later on that every single NBA GM that's not a former NBA player has a law degree or is a lawyer. And I'm definitely not smart enough to go to law school. So that eliminated that option for me. And it just became one of those things. You're either a former player and they give you the job because of that, and you've shown the ability to lead and be in that way, or you have a law degree. And I didn't realize that was a prerequisite for having that job. And I'm not saying it is or isn't for an AD's job at Indiana. I just feel like it sure seems like everyone they interview and talk to has a law degree.
Yeah, and you're not far off. Like I said, they like those negotiators, man. Those guys negotiate, but they don't need that as much anymore with the Big Ten Network having come into play. I think they can go back to being more of an athletics director for that. Tim texted in, I think Bob Knight's at such a high level that there's no coach that can make all IU fans happy. Truth to that.
And that's true. Here's where I'm going to flip the other side. I'm always an Archie Miller defender, and I'm with you. I agree with that. We don't need to use Bob Knight as the barometer, but you can't miss the NCAA tournament. I mean, that's the barometer to
for
me.
multiple years,
right? You can't miss it at all. If you miss it once out of every 10 years, okay, so be it. Bad luck. I mean, things didn't go well. You had a bad recruiting class, didn't pan out, but you can't miss it consecutive years. You can't miss it on a regular basis. It has to be, we have to be one of those schools, again, that gets back into you've made the NCAA tournament 20-some consecutive years in a row. Like, that can't be an option. And
Indiana needs to be competing for national championships, not to make it into the tournament.
Here's the thing. Here's what is crazy about the NCAA tournament is all you've got to do is get there. Once you get there, anybody can win it. And yes, of course, there are the 16 seeds that know they can't win it, but Indiana's obviously never going to be a 16 seed either. So once you get to that point, anybody can go on a run. Any team, Michigan does this every year, it seems like, in the Big Ten tournament. Doesn't matter how good or bad they are all year long. They get to the Big Ten tournament. For some reason, it's their comfort zone. And heck, they're either in the final or win the thing every other year. And other teams do that in the NCAA tournament. You look at, some teams are the opposite. Some teams get to the NCAA tournament all the time and they that they flunk out and they lose early on. I mean, but all you got to do is get there. And then you can talk about your tournament record at that point. I mean, this cannot become if Indiana doesn't make the tournament this year, they should expect some heat. I don't think there's any question. I think the coaching staff should expect heat. I think the players should expect heat. And I if they're not expecting that from themselves, then I'd be shocked. Which I know they are. I mean, they fully expect to make the tournament. And if they don't make it, what do leaders do when things are going bad? I mean, they take the blame. Whether it truly is their fault or not, they take the blame. And they figure out a way to fix it. And Archie Miller has to be the leader of this team.
Indiana has 6 games remaining. I think that they win 3 of those. Pomeroy thinks Indiana wins 2 of those. And if that happens, they do not make the tournament. There's no way, in my mind, in my opinion, that Indiana can make this tournament without winning at least 3 of these games.
Yeah, I agree with you, but let's also not base any opinions off of some computer nerd.
Well, it's not just some computer nerd. It's something that is proven to be really it's a value tool that they use because its accuracy is up there. It's not perfect. Nothing is, but there's definitely value to this tool because it's not far off. Again, nothing is perfect, and you're never going to have that. But there is some accuracy in what he does. He's been doing it for a long time. But yeah, you can't put any future.
We'll just agree to disagree on that because he's a computer nerd. I mean, he's putting numbers into a computer, and it's coming out and spitting out how many games they think they're going to win. I don't know what you think the definition of computer nerd is, but that's my definition of computer nerd.
Well, I'm not
the guy
saying
has no basketball. He's not weighing the eye test into anything. He's saying, based on what we've seen, this is what's going to happen. And you can't Indiana has put those results in there. So, I mean, Indiana's responsible for the results, so you get that. But, it's a computer nerd. Of course, he's going to think they're going to lose to Penn State because Penn State's ranked in the top 10 in the country.
That's not much different, though, to me than the guys out in Las Vegas. I mean, that's exactly what they're using.
But you see the guys in Las Vegas don't go by what the rankings are. You just said it last week. I mean, Iowa was ranked.
With rankings, and they use this information, I assure you. Pomeroy is one of the guys that is very respected in that field. It is
so based on Ken Palm's results. You think Indiana would have been favored to win that game on Ken Palm's results, even though Vegas had Indiana favored to win? You and I talked about that. It didn't seem right to us. It made you think the guys in Vegas know something.
And I went exactly with what Vegas said.
I agree with you. That's why I'm saying that's not what Ken Palm said. Ken Palm said they would lose because they were ranked so much higher.
And like I said, nothing is perfect, and none of these are going to be dead on. But over the course of time, they are much more accurate than they are not accurate. So it's just another tool that you use. It's not an all-out given, but it is a tool, and it's a tool that is shown to have accuracy. So it is something that you can use with some confidence. But again, nothing. It doesn't matter what anybody says. When it comes to a game being played, all bets are off because the players actually and officials and everyone else control how they end up. But we'll see. Hopefully that's not the case. Hopefully they do win those 3 games because, like I said, I think they have to win those 3 to make it in. And even winning those 3, Todd, that just puts them at 19 wins on the season. One short of that magical number of 20, but they'll have another opportunity because the Big Ten tournament comes up, of course. But we've talked about this. That's a very similar sounding situation to last year when they went into the Big Ten tournament, needing to win a game and weren't able to get that accomplished. It would sure be nice if you could set yourself up to where you don't have to win that game.
Where we're not relying on anybody's discretion.
Yeah, when you don't rely on Pomeroy or anybody else.
Right.
You just take it into your own hands and do what you can do with it.
I mean, just thinking about it right now. I mean, you look at the results of it right now. Tell me in your mind right now, and I'm going to use them because they're our rival and they're the closest example. But if Purdue, where would you say Purdue's above Indiana right now when it comes to making the NCAA tournament?
No, shockingly, no.
I wouldn't either, except for it seems like on CBS when they talked about it all weekend long, they talked about Purdue was in, and for sure in. If Purdue loses tonight to Wisconsin,
Their
at
season's
Wisconsin,
over. Their season is over.
they're 14-13.
Yep, their season is over
on the year. This is something that doesn't make any sense to me.
It doesn't. I am totally in agreement with you. If I had, if you gave me the look test, the eye test, I think Purdue's is above Indiana, but not according to anything else. And the record bears it out. They're not. If they lose tonight, they are done. They're NIT bound. And I think I said it. I said it weeks and weeks ago. I did not see Purdue making the tournament. I didn't then, and I don't now. They're not going to make the tournament. I don't care if they win tonight or not. They're not. They're not going to make the tournament. They're not going to be one of the Big Ten teams that makes it in. I don't think. But they're one of those teams that will leave you shaking your head because, boy, they can sure get close with a nasty looking record.
And the weird part is, so forget the comparison of them versus Indiana, because I know people are going to think I'm using that as a comparison. I enjoy watching Purdue play. I've always enjoyed Matt Painter's teams. They play hard, and I enjoy watching that. So I watch the majority of their games. But when you look at the overall resume of everything that's on there, it just makes this is where I know I don't understand what's going on, because when you hear this guy's on CBS,
they're a worse feeling.
All the people talk about it. They're like, "Oh yeah, Purdue's in," and I'm looking at it going, they're 14-12. They have the same number of quad one wins that Indiana has. They have 2 really, really bad quad 3 losses, which Indiana has no quad 3 losses.
That's a difference maker right there.
It really is. And that's what I don't understand. That's what I don't get. If you look at them in the net rankings, they're way above Indiana. But in the quad rankings, they're way below Indiana. And the quad score. And I know they factor in the net rankings, they factor in the quad rankings, they factor in all these different factors, but when you look at them as a whole, I'm not like, I could do the same thing with Wisconsin. I just use Purdue because it's in state and more of our listeners will be familiar with Purdue, but I can use the same thing with Wisconsin. I mean, they've got the same issue. They've got some really, really bad losses, but they've got some great road wins.
Yeah, you picked, that is right. You picked another perfect team to match up to that, because they are also one of those teams that have securely been in the tournament, I think. Although at the same time, you're looking at them and you're going, I don't know how, but they're in. But they're a team. I do think Wisconsin makes the tournament. They're a team that they're opposite of Purdue. They will get in, I think.
Why do you think that?
I think that they will do enough to get in. What is their record? Like 15-10?
Yeah, they're 15-10. They're 8-6. So they're over 500 in the Big Ten.
Well, that right there is going to go a long way. When you're over plus 500 in this conference this season, that's going to carry a lot of weight. They've got some good wins in this conference. That's going to carry some weight. And I think that this season, because of the season that it has been and what we've seen, and especially in the Big Ten Conference, the Big Ten is going to get a little bit more margin of error this year, I think, with people, just a little bit. And I think that little bit is going to get a team like Wisconsin in. It's not going to be enough for Purdue because they're not going to do enough at the end of the deal. Wisconsin will do enough to get in, I think.
Yeah, Wisconsin has, you can look at it as a positive or a negative. If they win the games, obviously it's going to be a positive, but they've got a pretty good schedule. They've got Purdue at home tonight, and they've got Rutgers at home this Sunday. In all reality, like, you think about this, they could lose both of those games, and it would not be a shocker if they lost both of those games.
They won't lose to Purdue at home, but you're right. Nothing would surprise me.
I mean, are you saying that because Purdue plays bad on the road, or because you're just looking at the teams in general?
I think that
because I think Purdue's more talented than Wisconsin.
Wisconsin is definitely a better team at home, like most teams, than they are on the road. And Purdue has shown that they can go on the road when they did it in Bloomington. So it's not that, but I just think that I think Wisconsin is a solid enough team at home and Purdue is just an okay team that it's just not going to be enough.
Yeah, the crazy part is, if you look at their schedule and you see what it comes down to, their last game of the year, Wisconsin's last game of the year, is at Indiana. And I think for both teams, that could end up being a really, really big game.
Cannot disagree with you. Man, it's going to be exciting. Tonight you've got all right, so tonight's games, you've got the Illini. They're going to Penn State. There's the game of the night in the Big Ten.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't see Penn State losing. I think they've lost once this season. They're 20-5. The Illini, pretty strong. They've taken a few bumps here of late.
Yeah, they have. They've lost 4 in a row, I think, haven't they?
Yeah, and they're a good team. We know they're a good team.
Yeah, I mean, listen, the stretch that they just had, they were at Iowa, Maryland at home, Michigan State at home, and at Rutgers. I mean, yeah, and then now they're at Penn State. Look at that 5-game stretch they've got. But they're they've lost 4 games in a row. So, yeah, there's no doubt they are struggling a little bit.
And we know how good Illinois is, so that
it'll make a
how
difference into whether
DeSanmu
is back or not. I mean,
absolutely.
He didn't play in the last game, but I know they said his MRI was negative, so I know they were expecting him back. But it'll be interesting. Illinois is a team. I honestly, and I'll still say this: they've lost 4 in a row, and I will still say this: I think they're an extremely dangerous team, and I think they could beat anyone in the country. And I wouldn't say that about every Big Ten team.
I agree with you. Purdue at Wisconsin, we talked about that one. I think Wisconsin is going to win that game, no doubt. And then the other game in the Big Ten tonight, Northwestern at Maryland, that should not be much of a game. Maryland 21-4 and trying to become the Big Ten champion for the first time since they joined the conference, man.
I'm going to go against you tonight. I'm taking Maryland for sure, but I'm going to take Illinois and Purdue in the other 2 games. I think the 2 road teams will win there.
Illinois would not. Purdue would shock me. If they can get a win there, that would shock me. Illinois wouldn't because they're good, number one, but number 2, they're needy. They need a win, man.
The reason why I'm surprised that you would say it would shock you is because Wisconsin's not that good. Especially
I know, but neither is
Kobe
Purdue.
King.
I know, but neither is Purdue.
Yeah,
and it's just because they're at home. I'm not gonna lie. It's just because they're at home. I mean, you got 2 teams that are both okay. They're just okay. And so I'm going to take the home team in that matchup. And that's the only reason why.
Yeah.
And that's it. The only other big game outside of that to watch tonight, and I think I will be checking that one out, UK taking on LSU down in the Bayou.
Man, there's a bunch of great games tonight. You got Dayton taking on VCU. That's at VCU. That'll be a great game. I'll definitely want to watch that one. That'll be fun.
Dayton has struggled at some teams on the road. They've won a lot of close games. They've only lost twice this season, but man, they have won a lot of close games, which will help them come tournament time.
Yeah.
But they've been tested.
You want to watch a lot of offense? Creighton and Marquette tonight. That'll be a high scoring, up and down, a lot of 3-pointers going up game. Both of those teams are pretty good and fun to watch. Then Baylor and Oklahoma. I mean, Baylor's at Oklahoma.
Yeah,
this is like a little teaser Saturday afternoon for us.
Wait a minute, is it Baylor Oklahoma or Baylor Kansas? When's Baylor Kansas?
That's Saturday.
Okay, Saturday.
You had Kansas last night with Iowa State, and then you've got Baylor with Oklahoma tonight, and then they play each other Saturday.
There's the big matchup. Top 3 matchup between those 2 teams. So looking forward to that.
Doesn't Kentucky have a big game Saturday too?
Well, hell, they got a big game tonight. I mean, LSU's ranked.
Not anymore. They're not.
Oh, they're not?
They haven't won a game since we did our thing with Christian Watford. They haven't won a single game since then.
Is that right?
We put the hex on them.
Oh, man, that's funny. Well, man, that's going to pretty much wrap it up for us today. We can't wait. Wow, what a great show. That was packed, top to bottom. Can't wait till tomorrow. Greg Doyle from the Indianapolis Star is going to join us tomorrow. We'll talk, of course, about the little bit of furor that popped up last week with him and Devontae Green. People getting a little out of sorts over that. I thought it was kind of funny, but we'll look forward to talking to him about that. We'll catch up with Matt Weaver from Peegs on football side of things for Indiana, see where we are there as well. But plenty to get to, man. It's that time of year. It's starting to get jacked up, Todd.
Yep. We knew once it got over the hump in February, it was going to be a bunch of good games almost every night, and it's living up to it.
Absolutely. Well, we cannot thank you enough because without you guys, we'd be sitting here by ourselves, and that would suck. Appreciate you very much. Thanks a lot to Jake keeping us on the track. Todd Larry, my running mate, and I'm Jim Coyle. Until tomorrow, from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios, I will see you on the radio.